everyone, and welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here today, and I hope you all enjoy it.
We're going to call in the speaker now.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ishai Biri. I'm with LinRB, and I'm going to talk about ways to measure and start being data-driven about your software delivery without damaging culture. So like I said, I'm with LinRB. LinRB is a startup that provides a solution for software delivery intelligence. I'm going to show some of the things we do throughout the presentation, but the focus is of this talk is to highlight ways in which you can introduce dev metrics while keeping a happy culture and a fruitful collaboration between all the team members and the managers. So some context. What is the data-driven trap? Everyone wants to be data-driven. Everyone wants to measure and introduce metrics. We're doing that for sales. We're doing that for marketing. We're doing that for product engagement. It's only natural that we also think about measuring our development organization in order to improve and to know what is working better and what is not. But there are some traps or downsides that people should be aware of. First of all, being data-driven is different than performance managing or trying to stack rank developers. In many organizations, these concerns are mixed, and people think that I need to measure my developers in order to know who's a better developer, who gives me more output, who I should promote, and so on. This is very much different than being a data-driven dev org. And while there are sometimes good reasons and good tools to do performance management, I'm going to focus on improving the dev process and using data to drive that. And I'm also going to pinpoint some cases or some examples showing why, if you are trying to measure your developers, this will fire back and bite you. It's going to damage the culture. And eventually, it's also not going to give you the right outcomes that you expect. So some anti-patterns that we've seen in many development organizations that are thinking about, oh, I need to measure our work, and I'm going to talk about some pitfalls. So first of all, focusing on individual devs. Again, measuring people, their output is both a problem in terms of morale and culture. It's also wrong because in almost all of the development work in modern teams is eventually a team effort. People write code, other people review it, yet other people may be the ones deploying it or handling bugs later. So looking at the individual developers is a very limited perspective. Another pattern that will fire back is looking for just one or two or a small handful of metrics that are silver bullets. This, if I get this right, everything will work okay. The main reason that this is problematic is that while there may be very useful metrics, developers are smart, and once you measure something, you will get more of that. If you measure code lines, you will get more code lines. If you measure more comments, you will get more comments. That does not mean that you have improved. And if you are looking at multiple metrics that cover a wide range of activities within the development cycle, you have more chance of fighting both the gaming and the bias that comes with just a few or a one or two major metrics that everything aligns to. Another pitfall is looking for those metrics that are easy to get. These are typically things I can easily grab from Jira, like velocity, and I'll talk about why that is a problem. Going for the easy target in terms of metrics can easily lead to using metrics that do not serve your real purpose, which is to improve your dev org and to increase both developer happiness, but also the output and value they produce. Another common theme is metrics for managers. Let me get some metrics, put them in a dashboard, give them to the CTO or the VP engineering, and that will improve my organization. And we have learned that if the metrics and the measurements stop at the manager level, this is not enough to improve. This, again, becomes potential for a cultural problem, and it does not give the dev teams the actual information and context that they need to improve. So metrics for managers is a pattern that we want to avoid. And finally, stopping at just metrics. I can measure things. That is a great first step to improve. But if I only stop at measuring and seeing some numbers, and I'm not combining that with the next steps, which are to include context and to improve my workflow, then I'm very limited in how these metrics can help me improve. And I'm going to talk about both of these, the context and the workflow, throughout the presentation today. So the title of this talk is 17 metrics. I'm going to go through a nice list of metrics and describe how they cover a wide range of activities in the dev process and the dev team. And from this, I suggest that everyone that is interested in beginning or improving the way they measure and improve their workflows can take those that most match the way that their team works and gives them the best impact. So I'm going to start with measuring my dev org's delivery efficiency. This is I think by far the most common reason for starting to measure things. Businesses invest a lot in their dev org. It becomes more and more the main area of value in companies. And there's a constant feeling that I need to get more value out of my dev team. I need to be faster. I need to drive more value to my customers. So people want to make sure that they're maximizing the value delivery. So the number one metric I'm going to describe is cycle time. This is a great metric to look at the efficiency of the team, and it doesn't measure output. It doesn't measure what we are building. It measures how fast the team is building units of work. These are typically branches that become PRs or MRs and eventually get merged and then released. So by cycle time, we are measuring how long does it take for the team to start and finish a unit of work, starting with the first commit and ending when that code is merged and released to production, serving customers. This is a great measure to identify where things get stuck or we have bottlenecks, and it covers the whole range of activities while producing code. And modern teams that are able to drive cycle time down and be consistent about it have to, to get it right, they have to slice their work into small independent PRs that can be easily coded, reviewed, and merged. They have to improve team communication to get the review phase quickly, and they have to invest in automation to be able to deploy quickly. So cycle time is the first and most important metric to look at. Many people think about velocity as a way to measure and to get a gauge on the performance of teams, or the measure of how fast or how robust are we delivering in terms of value. And I'm talking about agile velocity here. And this is a very dangerous trap. Velocity is sometimes a good measure to understand the accuracy of planning within a team. But once you are talking about multiple teams or trying to compare velocity between teams or trying to measure performance, it becomes a horrible metric and it fires back. Each team has its own way of defining what velocity actually means, of estimating stories. And once you begin to compare those, it becomes a game of who cheats in the velocity estimation game, and it eventually becomes something that is both meaningless but is also damage your culture while you're doing that. So remember that metrics that start with what teams internally use in a trusted scope to handle their planning, once that the velocity metric escapes that trusted zone and becomes a measurement tool, it fires back, and you're losing both the velocity for estimation, and you're not gaining anything by looking at velocity for understanding how well your team is performing. So cycle time, I'm going to dive a little bit into the phases within cycle time. And these basically are, you can think of each of these as additional metrics. So coding time, between first commit and until the PR is issued, this is the time for the developer to work on their requirements and code the change that they need. And the main question that we get from looking at coding time is, are we breaking our work into small enough chunks? If we are not, then coding is going to be large or long, and by fighting or resisting the urge to cover many things in a single PR or a single piece of work, we are able to cut that down and get a more efficient cycle flowing. PR pickup time, between the time the PR is issued and until someone begins to review it, is a measure of and is affected by how well we communicate within the team. People have to know that they need to review the PR. People have to get some free time to do that. So this is a communication and attention area that once the teams improve the way they communicate around this, then pickup can go down. Review time is the whole process from when the review started until the PR was merged. And here you get an understanding of the quality of the coding to begin with. Maybe people have to do a lot of fixing after the initial PR, and that can mean they may have done they could have done a better job to begin with. And again, this is also affected by attention and communication within the team. There is a multi-developer dance here in the review process that needs to happen for people to finalize the review and agree to merge and actually merge it. And then deploy time is going to be affected mostly by our automation and how do we have enough automation, testing, and so on that we are comfortable with deploying frequently, and very soon after the code is merged, we're able to ship it. Modern teams try to reduce that time, reducing risk and so on. There are very wide known benefits of having very frequent deploys. Once my code is ready, let's move it on and let's push it to production and move on. I talked about workflows, and I'm going to give an example of moving from metrics to workflow. So in cycle time, we measure, for example, in one of the components, how long are we waiting for a review to begin? My PR is up, but did someone begin to review it? If I only have a metric, then I can eventually see that, over the past iteration or in the past 2 months, we had our pickup time was too long. We should improve. Let's think about how we can improve, and let's apply some process. But it would be much better, and we have shown that this is much more efficient, if we are able to tell the team in real time about the specific PRs that are waiting in review before that becomes a problem. So by moving from metric to a workflow improvement in real time, and here's an example using a Slack notification, we can help the team react. Again, this is for the team, for the devs to react to. They can push the PR or the piece of work down the cycle quicker instead of learning after the fact that they had a problem in pickup. So we remove the problem, remove the bottleneck, and that is the robust way for teams to improve consistently. So I talked about the cycle time and then the 4 components, bringing us to a total of 5 metrics so far. The 6th metric I want to talk about is deployment frequency. I mentioned this in the deploy time within the cycle time, the deploy segment. Again, a lot of research, like the Accelerate book and others, the Dora metrics, a lot of research has shown that modern teams that are able to consistently deploy frequently, they're not waiting a long time for ready code to get deployed, are able to deliver value faster. They're reducing the risk of deploys because the change that is being deployed is very small, and they're able to learn much more quickly from the new code that they have shipped. They can get feedback from their customers on the new features, or verify that the bugs have been fixed or that performance has improved, and so on. So this is a pretty universal aspiration to get deployment very frequent, up to having every merge create a deploy. This is not always possible or even desired, but deployment frequency is a great measure to understand, am I consistently delivering value to customers all the time and with low risk. Next, I'm going to talk about some metrics around the quality of my delivery process and my code. So eventually, everything we do when we are developing code and driving changes in our code bases is going to serve customers. That is the reason we're doing that. If we're not able to keep a high bar of quality, then it doesn't matter how fast and how performant the team is. So a couple of metrics that help us understand what is going on in terms of the changes to my code base, which is basically the entire dev org reason to exist, to change the code base. Rework and refactor are ways to look at what is happening to my code over the changes that we are driving. So if I look at a branch or a pull request that is suggesting some changes to my code, some of that is going to be new work, new logic, new lines of code that are adding capabilities into my code base. Other parts are going to be refactoring, so I'm improving the existing code, possibly opening up the way for new features or for less bugs, for a clearer implementation, and so on. And rework is a type of refactor, or within refactor, rework is the amount of code that I'm changing, which is very new to begin with. This code only made it to the code base, I don't know, a few days back, maybe a week or two, and I'm already changing it. This we will mark as rework. So refactor means changing old code, and rework means changing very new code. And that could be a signal of a problem with an area in the code base or in my process. If I'm consistently changing code that has only made it like yesterday or 3 days ago or 5 days ago to the code base, that means that something could be wrong, and I'm obviously my risk is going to be higher. And we see a high correlation of high rework to failed deploys, production bugs, and so on. Something is not right if I have to always change my code in very short cycles. And once I see the rework beginning to rise for a team, that means that this may be ripe for some refactoring. Maybe there is an area in the code that is brittle, and every change that I'm trying to make, a feature or a new functionality or even bug fixes, I always have to mess around with that area of the code. Then I can preempt some of that with refactoring, with deliberately breaking away those areas so that I don't have to rework and do a lot of code churn all the time. This is another example of a workflow signal. This is, again, a risk-based signal. And here you see an example of a Slack alert, again, designed to help the team modify or change or react to something that needs their immediate attention. And here, this is a combination of a large PR, many code changes. This is a PR with some 800 code lines that have changed, along with a high ratio of refactor and rework. So most of these lines are changes to code, some of it very recent code. This is an example of a signal of something could be risky here. The team should respond by, taking a look, maybe taking a look and seeing that everything is okay and dismissing, maybe assigning another reviewer, maybe adding tests, whatever the team decides is best. But that is a way to highlight risk in a way that is context sensitive and inject that signal and response into my workflow. And as a great way to detect and avoid some of the risk that is always there with code changes. Another type of workflow signal is around PRs that are merged without reviews, or PRs that are merged with a very cursory review. Again, this could be targeted only to large PRs or risky PRs, but this gives the team a chance to respond by maybe taking a look after the merge and seeing if that nothing bad made it through, or by just having visibility to this can change the behavior. If we do not want this to be common or at all, then we can change the behavior by just floating these alerts so that everyone can see that this is happening and maybe do it less. Then review depth is when I'm looking to study my code review process. Every PR needs a review before it gets merged, and I can look at like how many comments are people doing in reviews? Are they just approving, or are they actually providing content and quality feedback on the review? So looking at review depth over time for a team means that I can understand that we are investing in our reviews, and they're not just a cursory way to say, okay, I looked at it, but I'm actually providing constructive feedback in the review so my code can improve and the original developer can learn. I'm going to talk about focus and priorities, and this is where we bring in some context. I could be building very efficiently, but am I building the right things? Am I building what I need to build right now in like within my priorities? So a few metrics and signals that help me understand that. Investment profile is a way for me to understand, looking at my recent iterations or sprints or any period of time. What is the team working on? What have we delivered? Where is our effort going? Is it going on spent on bugs? Is it spent on functional stories? Am I creating new value? Am I refactoring and investing enough in non-functional? By having that visibility, we can improve the way the team works by allocating people to specific things, or shifting some of my priorities so that I know that I have enough investment in new value if that is the thing I want to drive forward. So this is a very useful tool to understand if my priorities are reflected in the actual work that we're doing. Another context-based signal is looking at context switching. And here, I want to look at Git signals, like what are people working on? Information that comes mostly from Git, my branches, my PRs, my reviews, and so on. But also look at the Jira stories or the project management stories that this work is happening for. And by visualizing a timeline or similar information about who's working on what when, I can start seeing things like context switches. Oh, this person, they're actually working on 4 different items, 4 different stories in the same day or two. This could be context switching or too much context switching, which is detrimental to their eventual performance. It's a huge tax on developer work, which typically needs to be focused and in the zone. So context switches, if a developer has to work on a bug and then get back to the main feature, all of these are things that will reduce the value I can get from my team. And then additional signals in this area are like looking at shadow work, or developers are working on things, branches, PRs, and so on, but are they actually tied back to my stories, to my priorities in the sprint? By tying together Git and project management signals, we can start answering those questions and talk about, do I know what people are working on, and is it tied back to my priorities? This is the branch is not linked to issues or similar signals. And also, are we investing or giving the right kind of priority to the main stories, the main success criteria that I need to deliver? So here you see in this timeline an example of a story that is not getting attention for 5 or 6 days, no commits, no action happening here. If this is an important story that is in priority, then this signal helps me understand that I need to invest, or at least explore why there's no progress for 2 or 3 or more days. So that is a focus and priority kind of signal that I use the context from the project management plus the Git information to really help me understand what's going on. And then finally, the final 2 metrics are looking at the team health and the health of the developers working in the team in terms of working on too many things, working on like a lot of context switches, working weekends and holidays and so on. That is all a recipe for burnout. We've seen that happen way too many times. So signals like, does this person have too many things in flight today? Too many things, too many branches, PRs that are in progress, and basically create a huge tax on, like a mental tax and an attention tax, because all of these balls have to be kept in the air. And also, is this person, here's an example of Ariel working 21 out of the last 22 days. So basically working on weekends, committing code, with no breaks at all. Together, these are a strong signal that a burnout problem may be happening. So investing time to measure and to react to issues around balance of work, about burnout, is important to keep the culture positive and the team happy. All of the metrics that I've talked about, every single one here, are all, except maybe for the burnout alerts, they're all team metrics. They're all measuring the process of the dev team. They're not measuring the output or the code lines or other easy to gain technical metrics of developers. They're not designed to measure developer performance. They are designed for the development team to learn about the process, the bottlenecks, places there the process can improve, and use that information by injecting into workflows. So use it in real time as well as in retros and in goals or KPIs or OKRs to improve the dev process over time. By focusing on the dev team and the process, we are avoiding the cultural backlashes of measuring developers, stack ranking them, gaming metrics. There is no incentive to game those metrics because no one is measured against a benchmark or against their peers. The team gets information or data and insights that they can use to improve. I'm going to finish with some numbers that we've seen from our customer base, showing that by implementing metrics and by implementing workflows, there is a dramatic improvement. Here I'm showing improvement in cycle time. Practically every org, or more, 80% of our customers and teams are able to dramatically improve their cycle time by measuring it, by adding workflow automations and workflow notifications, like I've shown, to help the team react and improve constantly. And this pays off very quickly in the team's ability to reduce and slash the cycle time. In the output becomes much better with less work in progress, less context switching, and less risk in delivery. A final thought and advice for those of you that are thinking about just taking the first step and getting started with dev metrics and with applying intelligence in your software delivery process. So my one piece of advice for starting is to start. You don't have to get everything right. You don't have to start with 17 metrics, but the difference between starting something, having some reasonable and culture positive metrics in your dev org, is a huge difference between not doing anything and having something. So take that first step, get started, and then you can iterate like everything else in development. It needs to be iterative. teams start by improving the obvious things, and then it's a little harder to improve the less obvious elements. So just get started. I'm inviting everyone to join our Dev Interrupted community on Discord, listen to our great podcasts. And there are a few more resources here to learn more about starting a program, or to just begin measuring and begin to accelerating your dev org by starting to measure, starting to automate workflows, free for small dev teams up to 8 developers. Everyone is invited to take a look. So thank you, and now I'm ready for questions and hope to answer.
Any questions, please write it in the chat.
And if for any reason we didn't have time to take your question, you can always reach the speaker with the contact that they left here.
Or you can just type it on our Slack channel. We monitor it every day and you can get engaged with our community.
We look forward to hearing from you.
That was so great! We hope that you had a really nice evening with us and that you enjoyed all the content we shared.
Not only evening, you might be anywhere in the world these days watching this event.
That's actually right. That's right. So yeah, well, we hope that you will spend your morning, afternoon, evening again with us. So go back and check our meetup page and find our new and interesting events, and see you soon.
See ya!
As you can see on our meetup page, very soon we will launch our study group for certification. We will assist you into getting certified on GCP. The first event is an info session on the 12th of April. Make sure to subscribe and join the event with us.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be learning too, so I can't wait to learn alongside you.
And we have a lot of great content free for you, and we will help you pass the certification.
So I'll see you there.